All right, let's talk about something we all think we know: paradise. It turns out this is one of the most familiar, but maybe one of the most misunderstood ideas in our entire culture.
I mean, seriously, what's the first thing that pops into your head when you hear that word? For most of us, it's a very specific picture, right? We've seen it a million times in movies and art.
Yeah, I'm talking about clouds, pearly gates, and maybe some angelic figures floating around. But here's the kicker. That image, it's really more of a mashup of medieval art and some Greek philosophy than what you actually find in the Bible. The biblical story doesn't end there at all. But the original word for paradise? It pointed to something completely different, something planted firmly right here on the ground. And that's what we're going to dig into. We're going to trace that original idea and uncover a story that's way more profound and, honestly, a lot more down to earth.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, let's just put these two concepts right next to each other. You'll see the difference immediately.
So on one side, you've got the popular idea of heaven as an escape, leaving this physical world behind for some purely spiritual bliss. But then you look at what the Bible talks about, and it's the total opposite. It's about the restoration of the physical world. I mean, that's a completely different endgame, right?
All right, so this is where it gets really interesting. The key to unlocking this whole thing is to figure out where the word paradise even came from. And here's a little spoiler for you. It didn't start out as a religious word. Not even close.
The Greek word we get it from, paradeisos, was actually a loanword from Old Iranian. And what did it mean? A walled enclosure. Specifically, it was the term for a king's lavish, super exclusive royal garden. Think of it as the ultimate symbol of a king's power, his wealth, and the fact that he was present there.
Okay, so get this. The people translating the Hebrew Bible into Greek centuries ago had to pick a word for the Garden of Eden. And what do they choose? Paradeisos, this word for a Persian king's private park. That one choice was a game changer. It forever connected the idea of a king's personal domain with the place where God himself dwells.
Okay, let's follow that thread. Because Eden, it wasn't just some nice garden. In the ancient mindset, it was something way, way bigger.
This was the spot where heaven and earth were one, the ultimate intersection. It was imagined as a kind of cosmic mountain, the control room for the entire universe. It was God's throne room, his headquarters, where he held his divine counsel.
This quote just nails it. When Adam and Eve were in the garden, they weren't just hanging out in a pretty park. They were living in God's house, his temple palace, his throne room. That's a huge shift in perspective.
And once you see that, the whole narrative of the Bible kind of clicks into place differently. It's not just a story about breaking rules. It's a story about being exiled from God's home, from his very presence, and this epic, centuries-long quest to get back there.
And you can see this garden theme woven through the whole story. You start with the exile from the garden in Genesis. Then you get these little echoes of Eden, like the tabernacle and the temple. The prophets start talking about a future where the whole land will be like a garden again, and it all builds to this massive turning point in the New Testament that happens, where else? In a garden.
And this is where we get to what I think is a total aha moment. It's a tiny detail in the resurrection story that most of us just read right over, but it is packed with meaning.
Remember how Mary Magdalene sees the risen Jesus and thinks he's the gardener? That is not a random mistake. Think about it. In the ancient world, who was the ultimate gardener? The king. The king cultivated and governed his domain, his garden. So Mary, in her grief, accidentally stumbles upon this profound truth. She's looking at the one person who is the true royal gardener, the king who has come to fix the broken cosmic garden and restore it.
So with all that background, how does the New Testament itself actually use the word paradise? Well, it turns out it's used in three specific but connected ways. Okay, let's break this down. First, you've got what we could call the intermediate paradise, like in Luke when Jesus says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." It's about being in God's presence right after you die. Then you have the heavenly archetype Paul talks about, the third heaven, God's actual throne room. But then there's the big one, the final paradise. This is what you read about in Revelation, and it's all about the restored new creation right here on a renewed earth.
And this is a really important distinction to make. There's the intermediate state, being with Christ after death, which is great, but that's not the final destination. The ultimate hope isn't for us to escape earth and go up to heaven. It's for heaven to come down to a renewed earth. The goal is a completely restored global Eden.
So, all of this brings us to the grand conclusion, and it pretty much flips our popular idea of heaven completely on its head.
The ultimate biblical hope isn't about escaping the earth, it's about the complete restoration of the earth, transforming it back into its original purpose, to be the cosmic garden of God. The story that starts in a garden ends with the whole universe becoming that garden, with God living here, with us, forever.
So what if the goal isn't to get out of here? What if the point is to see this world, our world, fully restored? I mean, thinking about it that way, it doesn't just change how we think about the future. It changes how we see our lives, our work, and this physical world right now. It suggests creation isn't a sinking ship we need to abandon, but a divine project we're invited to be a part of restoring.